We realize that the COVID-19 pandemic continues to increase across the world. As for us in the domestic economy, we realize that we continue to propose and implement lockdown measures, and this has been having a negative impact on the overall economy itself. Last year, Jamaican economy declined by some 9% of GDP, although based on economic forecast, we are expected to grow this year, according to the World Bank, by about 4%. So we're expected to recover, and this recovery is basically comparing the economy to what took place last year, not necessarily what the country was before 2020. So if we're thinking about the global economy, we want to understand how has the pandemic impacted us. And if you realize that a lot of people are out of income, unemployment has been increasing, and a lot of people are filing for unemployment benefits. What this means is that with the increase in the coronavirus, there is also threats to an increase of the fourth wave of debt, as the world calls it. So a lot of people have to be borrowing more now because they're earning less, and because they're borrowing more, this means that they will be in an adverse position. The country as well will also be borrowing more, because what we're realizing that a lot of fiscal spending will have to be taking place across the world if we're supposed to move from one type of economy to another, taking into consideration that the COVID-19 pandemic has moved us from outside and brought us inside. So now the economy is really dependent upon the internet infrastructure, broadband infrastructure that we have, which is going to require some amount of investment, maybe a public-private partnership, maybe privately done. But in either case, the government will still incur costs because of the pandemic. A lot of businesses are closed down, so a lot of the taxes that the government would want to collect, they can't collect it. So this will have an impact on how we move forward. So the idea here is, how will emerging economies move forward? And they will move forward through investment in modern industries, through investment in the internet and the Internet of Things. We're moving into the fourth industrial revolution, which means that a lot of the activities that normally take place outside, a lot of the meetings, a lot of the functions that normally take place outside are now going to be taking place on the computer, so that the government and the country must take this into consideration when they are moving forward. Now, the idea is that there's going to be diminishing fiscal support to most of these countries, and countries must now become ingenious in how they escape and how they move forward. And Jamaica is no different. We have to think about our local circumstances. The idea is that tourism has declined, and a lot of the tourism participants are feeling the brunt of this burden. In Montego Bay, where I am from, we're also feeling this burden. But the good thing is that remittances year on year have increased by 20% over the remaining Caribbean and Latin American countries, which is really good. Jamaica seems to be basically sending back more money. More Jamaicans are sending back more money to Jamaica, and so on and so forth. Now, the idea is that the vaccine is supposed to help the economies reignite. So if, for example, a country is able to get the vaccine for everyone, then the economy can restore itself and pick up from where it left off in the beginning of 2020. But what we project is that there is going to be some amount of vaccine discrimination, some amount of vaccine shortages, especially in poorer countries or for the poorer class of people in countries. What we've seen is that a lot of the vaccine and the advertisement have been directed towards the politicians, directed towards people who are quote-unquote classified to be more important, and the working class seems to be not being prioritized where the vaccine is concerned. Nevertheless, I've spoken to a lot of the people who participate in the tourism industry in Montego Bay, and basically what they're saying is that they are willing to accept the vaccine. They are willing to accept the vaccine if it requires them to go back to work. So the idea here is that, how will the economy recover? And the economy will recover as quick as the government can put the pandemic under control, as quick as the government can implement measures to really curtail the spread of the virus, which has been in play, but at the same time, these measures have suppressed economic activity. So we're looking at measures that will allow economic activity to continue to take place, and these measures include the distribution of the vaccine. So a country's economy will recover based on how well they can distribute these vaccines. All in all, the modern economy has been evolving. The exchange rate, as you know, is somewhere between 145 and 150 to 1, and has been so for about 6 months. Inflation is not as high as one would imagine, so that these indicators are being held somewhat under control. Where we're seeing the downturn is that we're seeing an increase in unemployment, we're seeing a reduction in output, we are seeing a decline in value-added output as well, which we refer to as labor productivity in Jamaica. And all these are as a result of the type of processes and the type of activities that we participate in as businesses. So the onus is on us now to think about where we are, to think about what we need, to think about where we're going, and fundamentally to see how best we can restructure our individual businesses to meet the new world.